Okay.
I think you'll enjoy this. Frank Capra and I are very good friends, and he introduces me, Alex, to all his acting people. I meet Jimmy Stewart, Katharine Hepburn, Myrna Loy, and of course Bing Crosby. He had directed all of them in previous films. And they stayed in touch with him because even though they all had big careers and had made 50, 60 movies, they still liked his opinion because he was considered the master. He had discovered Barbara Stanwyck from nothing and made Jimmy Stewart into a big star. He's retired, I'm single, and we spend 4 or 5 nights a week watching movies and talking about Hollywood. 1966, Bing Crosby calls us up. Capra puts him on a speakerphone, and he's all excited. He says, fellas, I'm going to be in the remake of Stagecoach. He says, I recall he played Doc Boone. Says the director is Gordon Douglas, and Capra says, well, who's playing the Ringo Kid? Because that's the lead. And Crosby says, well, a young actor, good-looking kid named Alex Cord. Now, at this point, Capra and I were not familiar with you. You had not done a lot of work. This is 1966. And this is a signal for Capra and I to see the picture and get back to Bing. That's how it would work. So either Gordon Douglas or the producer arranges for Capra and I to see the film. I think it was at the Directors Guild. That's so many years ago, I don't remember, but I think that was right. And we meet Marty Rackin, who's quite a character. And he tells us how he got Norman Rockwell to paint your portrait, which was quite a story. And we see the picture. And keep in mind, I would ask Capra to critique some of the young actors who were not known. After all, Crosby had been in many pictures. Red Buttons had gotten an Oscar. Anne Margaret we knew, but we didn't know you. So I said, Mr. Capra, why don't you critique the lead, Alex Cord, because he's new to us. So Capra says, that's fine. Picture is over, and Capra and I are having dinner. And I said, well, tell me about Alex Cord. Now, I'm going to read from my notes. These are Capra's words. I'm not paraphrasing. This is from my notebook. I would keep a book on this. He says, first of all, Alex Cord is a very courageous young actor. I said, well, why do you say that? Well, he said, this has got to be one of the most iconic roles in all of movies. This picture makes John Wayne not only a great star, but an enduring star. I think if you took a poll today in 2019 as to who the top 10 most popular actors are, Wayne would be on that list today, 40 years after his death. The remarkable feat. So Capra said, there's such expectations for Cord to maybe imitate Wayne's walk, the way he talks. A lot of Wayne's fans are anticipating that. But what I like about Mr. Cord is he didn't do that. He puts his own take on it. That took a lot of courage to do that. Secondly, I'm just reading from my notes, he says, Cord has the one thing that all good actors need to be successful. To me, it's the most important thing. Without this, you don't have anything. I said, what is that? He says, believability. If I don't believe Alex Cord is the Ringo Kid, you don't have anything. I don't care how handsome he is. I don't care about his wardrobe. I don't care about the scenery. If I don't believe Cord is the Ringo Kid, you don't have anything. And I believe he's the Ringo Kid watching him. Thirdly, he handles dialogue quite well for someone so new in the business. I like the way he handles dialogue. Also, I can tell that this young man has been around ranches and horses. Just the way he walks, the way he handles horses. This guy has been around horses and ranches. Now, he has no background on you at all, and I thought that was remarkable. And he said, for example, I remember going with Humphrey Bogart and Cagney, and they did one Western in their life. They were so out of place, it was laughable. I think it was the Oklahoma Kid. He said it was a joke. You didn't believe that Cagney and Bogart were Western stars. Cord.
I remember it very well.
Right. He said Bogart and Cagney, first of all, their hats were over their faces. It was a joke. And that's what he means about believability. You could take two great stars like Cagney and Bogart, and they look ridiculous in this picture. But after all, they were Cagney and Bogart. They got away with it. But he said young Cord has been around horses. I can just tell the way he walks and the way he handles himself. And then I'd ask him one final question. I said, Mr. Capra, let's assume we're back in the 30s and the 40s when you were one of the top directors. Would you hire Cord for one of your pictures? Oh, he says, absolutely. If he can be believable in this role, he will be believable in other roles. And the more he does acting, after all, he's been in it for a few years, the better he gets. And if he's this good at this young age, watch him as time goes on. So I thought you'd be interested in hearing Frank Capra's evaluation of you as the Ringo Kid.
I love it. I love it. I'm sitting here grinning from ear to ear.
This is one of the top directors of all times. He's rated 5 out of the greatest ones, John Ford being 1. So that's quite something.
Yeah, it sure is, and I'm very familiar with his work.
Yes.
What Mr. Capra did not know about me was that before I ever set foot in front of a movie camera, I spent 10 years in the theater on the stage, and I did a play in London with Siobhan McKenna. It was a 2-character play, and the nominees for Best Actor by the London critics, when they were having their London Critics Awards, were Albert Finney, Christopher Plummer, a third guy whose name just went out of my head, and me, Best Actor. And Chris was doing Beckett, and Albert was doing Luther. And the producer was, oh my God, famous English producer. But anyway, so I had that kind of a background, plus having spent 3 seasons at the American Shakespeare Festival in Stratford, Connecticut. So I had that going for me.
You sure did.
How perceptive. Yeah, how perceptive of him, though, to say the way I handle the dialogue.
Yes. He said, this for such a young man, he sure handles the dialogue well. Keep in mind, neither of us knew about your background in the American Shakespeare Theater. We didn't know any of that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what's so amazing about it, his perception.
Yeah, and look how he knew you were around horses. Your name meant nothing to us at this. He says, this guy has been around horses. I said, Mr. Capra, how the hell can you tell that? I'm looking at the screen. I don't see it. He says, that's why I'm a director and you're not. Got it? He says, this guy has been around ranches and horses. This is a cowboy rather than Cagney and Bogart. They looked ridiculous. He said, that's believability. He said, that's what I'm talking, because people never understand what I mean. What I mean is Cagney and Bogart should not be in a Western. Alex Cord should be in a Western, but not them.
Yeah.
So keeping it, let's stay on Stagecoach. I understand you brought your parents to meet Bing Crosby. Talk a little about Crosby, because I knew him pretty well. I'd like to hear your impressions of him on and off the set.
Well, first of all, I had lunch at one point before Stagecoach with Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole.
Ooh, wow.
In England.
Okay.
I was doing a movie there with Sir Richard Attenborough and Stanley Baker. But anyway, so I was not, for some reason, I was far from arrogant, but I was not intimidated by Bing Crosby.
Okay.
But I knew that I had I knew that I was going to tell him about my mother's absolute adoration of him. She thought that he was everything that everybody thought the Beatles were.
Right.
So she just adored him, as she did all movie stars. But she had no background at all. No one in my family at all ever had any background in theater or show business or anything like that. They were very humble, peasant-like people. My father is the greatest man I've ever met in my life, and he did not have a grade school diploma, but he wrote letters to newspapers, and they published them all the time. And one time, one of the letter writers on whatever the issue was Katharine Hepburn, and they published her letter and his letter.
Wow.
And he had billing above Katharine in the newspaper. I couldn't get over that. I said, how did you ever manage this? He was an amazing guy. Anyway, so when I met Bing, that's the first thing I went into, was to tell him how popular he was with my mother. And it didn't take me very long to get to the main thing, which was, if I bring my mother out here to Colorado, would you consent to have dinner with us? I said, that would make her life. And he, without blinking an eye, he said, absolutely, I'd love it. So that's how our relationship began. And of course, I did bring my mother and father and a couple friend of theirs, and they just had the time of their lives. And Bing could not have been kinder and more gentle and accommodating, just a superhuman being.
Yes.
I had the utmost respect for him in every way. Great man.
Yes, yes, yes. You know, his singing career was so sensational, people don't really give him credit for being a great actor, and I think he was a great actor.
He was indeed. He was indeed. The picture that he did with Grace Kelly.
Country Girl.
Country Girl. I mean, he was brilliant.
Fabulous in that.
Yeah.
Fabulous in that, yes. But he's such a singing superstar that his acting is overlooked. You know, he's such a tremendous figure in music.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna. I have the readers' questions here. We'll go for as long as you and I can handle it. One reader wants to know: did you ever use hypnosis to help you in your writing? And if so, what does it do for the writer?
What an interesting question, because the answer is yes.
Yeah, I thought that was real. That's why I wanted to ask you first. What does hypnosis do for a writer? You'll have to explain that to me.
Well, what it did for me was it helped me to focus my mind, to stay focused on what, and you need to be a writer, is to stay focused on whatever it is you're writing about.
Okay.
And to not allow distractions they do occur, but don't allow them to have any effect on your work time.
Okay.
And and I also, I actually took some classes in self-hypnosis, and that was how I was able. I mean, I'm a physical guy. I love doing all the things that I have done. So sitting in a chair in front of a blank page is not something that comes easily to me.
Right.
The mere fact of being inoperative physically is a real task, to just keep my butt in the chair. I get out of the chair very often but I don't stay out for long. So I developed a technique of self-hypnosis where I would tell myself that I'm going to sit in the chair for 3 hours and that I will not get out of the chair until 11:30.
Okay.
So, and that's what I would do. I just would not break those rules. That's what self-hypnosis does. It allows you to make a rule for yourself and to stick with it because you told yourself you would, and you just don't want to fail in that.
Right.
It's basically not wanting to fail yourself.
So are you saying every time you sit down to the word processor, and I'm assuming you use that, do you have to put yourself through self-hypnosis each time you sit down to write?
No, I don't, because I have now become so in tune to the process for my personal self. So if I just sit in the chair, that's the same as going into self-hypnosis.
Okay, interesting. So you no longer have to use that technique because it's kind of ingrained in your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Very interesting.
In my being.
Right, in your being. Right. Oh,
Yeah.
and let's see, how do you set a specific time every day to write? In other words, you get in the chair at noon, you get out at 5. Give me a feel for how you work that every day.
No, I'll do my best. What I like to do is work early in the morning.
Okay.
But I don't always do that because things get in the way.
Right.
And so sometimes I'm more interested in breakfast than I am in writing. So I might make myself a really nice breakfast. And I may not get, there are lots of times where I have not gotten in the chair until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But once I get in that chair at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't stop for dinner. I go as long as my mind is working in the right way. But I'm not a fast writer because my books all seem to develop a life of their own. Either the characters do, or the story does, or some of each, the characters and the story. And so I give myself to that and let that dictate to me.
Got it. Interesting. Do you find the older you get, and I'm 78, I know you're older than that, do you find as you've aged it gets tougher and tougher to write, or not so with you?
No, it doesn't get tougher if I have something that I'm writing. Like right now, I'm more than halfway through a new novel, which I'm loving doing it, but it is not coming easily. It's very different. It's not like anything else I've ever done. So every day I am discovering the book as I sit down. I have no idea what I'm going to write.
And that itself is a thrill. You don't know what's coming up. It's kind of like I'm looking forward to what's coming up.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Were there any writers that you admired, William Styron, Faulkner, as you're getting into writing, where there's some people you said, boy, this is really something, I'd like to emulate this, or I admire Hemingway, anything like that?
Oh my God. I can go on for weeks about that. John Steinbeck. I had the greatest thrill of my entire life to meet John Steinbeck, to have dinner with him.
Oh, boy.
And spend time with him. The same, I met Henry Miller and spent time with him. My education as a writer I've never taken a course in writing or anything like that. My education has been reading great writers.
Got it.
That's all I do. I don't read any crap. I just read great writers and over again. I can name 4 or 5 of John Steinbeck's books that I've read at least twice, and several 3 times. And when I read them, they're years apart, the readings. So in some cases, I still have the same copies of the book. So I always nowadays I don't read without a yellow highlighter in my hand, because if I'm reading something valuable, I know that I'm going to want to remember it and look it up. So I use a yellow highlighter, but initially I used to just either make a note in the column on the side, the margin, and or underline something with a pen. And it was interesting to me. I read the Brothers Karamazov at least 3 times, and I remember reading it on the 3rd time, and it was the same copy that I had read twice before. So it had my initial notes and underlinings in it. And it was interesting how, as I read them the 3rd time, how I questioned, why did I underline that the first time? What was there about it? Where was my mind when I first thought I needed to underline this?
Got it.
That was an education.
Yes, yes. Years ago, I interviewed the writer Harold Robbins, and your name came up. I don't remember why. This is 40 years ago. Did you know Harold Robbins?
I starred in his movie called Stiletto.
Oh, that's right. You sure did.
That was a Harold Robbins book.
Yes.
I knew Harold very, very well, and his wife.
Did you learn anything from him? He was such a popular writer. He sold millions and millions of books.
Yeah, I can't say that I did.
Okay.
I admired him for his success, and I'm sure that I've read all his books, so I'm sure that I did learn something from him.
But
the way I can point to what I learned from Steinbeck.
Got it. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. The questions are very, very different. Another reader wants to know, did you employ the great business manager Jay Bernstein, and did he advance your career? He's such a famous manager. Anything on Jay Bernstein that comes to mind?
Oh, my God. Well, he was a dear, dear friend, and he introduced me to Sammy Davis, who became one of my dearest friends. I mean, dearest friends. I can't tell you how many photographs I have of Sammy that I took because I had gotten into photography very seriously at one point. And I used to go up to Sammy's house to watch movies. And sometimes it would be just he and I in his screening room, because he had, like me, very esoteric tastes. And so he liked to watch movies, foreign movies, and things that a lot of people weren't interested in. So he would always call me to come up and watch those movies.
Yes.
I loved it. And I remember 2 occasions where there were only 3 of us watching the movie, and one of them was Burt Reynolds.
Ah.
It was Burt Reynolds, Sammy, and me. watching the movie.
What a combination. I have a story that confirms your Sammy Davis tale, and I guess I'll tell it now. Joey Bishop was a neighbor of mine in the 1980s when we both lived in Newport Beach. And I would have dinner with him, a couple times a month. One time I have dinner with him, and Sammy Davis and Al Taviz are there together. They were friends of Joey's. And we started talking about friendships. Somehow we got on friendships, and I said, Sam, other than Sinatra and Dean Martin, that whole group, who are some of your closest friends outside of that rat pack, if you can use that word? Now think of all the thousands of people Sammy knows. He says to me, Al, you know who I'm most comfortable with of all the friends? I said, I have no idea. He said, the actor Alex Cord, if I had to pick one. And Joey and I said, that's amazing. Of all the people he knew, he said, in quotes, I'm the most comfortable with Alex Cord. That's quite a statement.
That is great to hear.
Isn't that something?
Well, you just made all the hair stand up on my arms.
Because Joey and I were thinking, look at all the people Sammy would have known. Thousands of people. And he says, yeah, I have a lot of friends, but if I had to pick one who I'm most comfortable with, and that's the key, it would be Alex Cord. And I said, that's quite something.
Well, now I'll tell you how I first met Sammy face to face.
Like to hear it.
I was dating a beautiful girl named Angela Comer. She made a couple of movies.
Yes, I remember her. Beautiful face on her. Beautiful.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
And there was an Italian restaurant, and I can't think of the name of it right now, but it was dead famous, a hangout for celebrities, including the entire Rat Pack.
Okay.
It was a great restaurant. It was on the little Santa Monica Boulevard. And I want to say it was La Dolce something. Sweet rice. I thought Dolce Vita, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, it was a very popular place. So, and the owner liked me, treated me very well. And so I took Angie up there for dinner one night. We had been there. We were kind of regulars. And so we're sitting in a room, very nice booth in the corner in the back of the restaurant. And we were about more than halfway through our dinner when you get that sense when somebody famous comes in.
Right.
And suddenly I looked down about 30 feet or so and toward the entrance, and here comes Sammy, Dean Martin, no Frank Sinatra, Henry Silva, and there were about 5 of them. And Joey Bishop might have been there. But I was so impressed. I've been all my life starstruck.
Sure.
I just said to Jeanette, I said, look who just walked in. And they're about 30 feet away being seated by the owner. And of course, because the place was used to having celebrities, it wasn't that big a deal. And it was handled very smoothly and stuff. And there weren't any tourists in there.
Alex, can you talk a little louder? You're fading in and out just a little, and I want to get all of it. Talk a little louder.
Okay. So we're sitting there, and Sammy Sammy somehow was kind of the center of attention. And we're finishing dinner. And so we get up to leave, and the owner comes to escort us out to the exit.
Right.
Which means we have to walk right past their table. So, and of course I had determined to not stare or say hello. I didn't know anybody there. There was no one there that I knew. I had met Henry Silva, but I wasn't about to, make a deal of that. So we're just walking out, and I'm trying not to gawk. So as I get past the table, I can't see them anymore because I'm having to turn around a partition there to get to the exit. And I hear Sammy say to whomever, he said, "Is that Alex Cord?" And whoever he was asking, he said, "Yeah." And that was it. I was out the door.
Right.
In my car. And so we're out on the street. And I was driving a Porsche at the time. And I'm waiting for the guy to bring the car around. And suddenly the door to the restaurant bursts open, and out comes Sammy on one leg. He's hopping on one leg because he only has a shoe on the one foot. The other shoe is in his hand.
Right.
And he's trying to put the shoe on. He had taken his shoes off at the table. And then tried to catch me. He only got one shoe on. He comes flying out there. He goes, "Alex." So I turn to him, and he comes right up to me. And now at this point, he's still putting his second shoe on. And he reaches up to shake my hand. And he said, "Hi," he says, "I'm Sammy Davis." And I couldn't resist it. I said, "No, kid." And so he took that very well. And we shake hands, and I introduce him to Anjanette. And he said, "Man, I just ran stagecoach at my house the other night." And he said, he went right into this. And he said, "You did something with a horse." And he said, "I've never seen anybody do it like that." And he said, "I want to know how you did it." I said, "What was that?" He said, "Well, when we were on the horse, we jumped him over a fence. We were going to escape on him, but then you had spotted the Indians, smoke or whatever." And he said, "You picked that horse up with the reins and turned him on his hind feet and went galloping off in the back in the direction that you had just come." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, that move was so smooth." He said, "I've never seen anybody do that with a horse." And I said, "Well, it's actually, there's a name for it. It's called a rollback." And that horse was well enough trained that I could do that. And I had spent a lot of time working on that horse, although it wasn't on screen. But whenever I could, I'd be on it. And he said, "Well, how do you do that?" I said, "Well, first of all, here we are on the street, concrete sidewalk." I said, "First of all," I said, "it's not something that is easily described how you do it." I said, "The horse has to be trained to be able to do that." And I said, "That takes a long time."
Yes.
I said, "But it's very perceptive of you to have picked up on it because it is a very special move. But the fact that you even noticed it is very impressive to me. He said, well, you know, he said, I got to tell you something, man. I want to be you. That's what he said to me. He said, I want to be you. He said, I've always wanted to be a tall, blonde-haired guy. And he said, you know, I pay attention to what you do, and blah, blah, blah. And it went on from there.
Right.
Then you know, our car arrives, and we leave. And the very next day, Jay Bernstein calls me, and he said, Alex, Sammy Davis called me. He said he was handling Sammy at that time. And he said, Sammy called, and he wanted to invite you to his house for dinner this Saturday. And so I said, I'd love it. So then he said, well, I'm going to give him your number and have him, whoever it calls, and tells you where it is and how to get there and blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay. So now, what Sammy did not know, he had just married Altavis not very long ago. When I was studying in New York, one of the classes that I took was a dance class, a modern dance.
Ah, boy.
And it was done by one of the famous, you know, what was it, the June Taylor dancers?
That's right, yes.
Is that right? Yeah. Well, one of those people was teaching this class in modern dance, and somebody talked me into it. So, you know, I was always going wherever the pretty girls were.
Sure.
So I enrolled in that class, and who was in the class but Altavis Davis?
How do you like...
She wasn't Davidson. She hadn't married Sammy. She was just one of the dancers taking the class.
Right.
I liked her right away. And I became friends. But only in that class. I mean, that's how we went 3 times a week. And be there with Altavis. So now I'm going to meet her at her house with Sammy. She's going to be introduced to me as Mrs. Sammy Davis.
Right.
So I said, oh man, this is going to be a trip. First of all, I don't even know if she remembered me because it's been a couple of years. And the next thing I know, here she comes with Sammy, and he's introducing her to a line of people who are meeting Mrs. Davis for the first time. And he comes to me, and Sammy says, Alex, this is my wife, Altavis. He says, Altavis, this is Alex Cord. And she jumps up and into my arms.
Huh.
And she says, Alex, God, Alex, blah, 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 blah. And we talk about the dance class and all. Sammy is standing there with his jaw hanging down.
I imagine. That's a great story.
Isn't that a great story?
Is Altavis Davis still alive, Alex?
You know what? I heard a rumor that she died.
Okay.
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I just am so out of touch with that world right now.
Right. No, I understand. All right, the next question is an interesting one. See if you can relate to this. The reader says, Horace and Willie, were they an influence on you? Who is Horace and Willie?
Horace. Well, the only Horace I knew was, he was a black guy who was a construction laborer.
Okay.
I wondered how somebody, so whoever came up with Willie, and Willie was probably Bill Shoemaker, the jockey.
So were they horsemen? Is that what they were?
No, Horace was a laborer.
Okay.
I was working as a bricklayer.
Ah.
He was a laborer who brought the cement and the bricks to me. That's how I paid my way through college.
Memory you have. Wow. Boy.
Well, I do. Yeah.
Gee.
But anyway, yeah. So that would Horace. The reason he was memorable was that he's the strongest individual I've ever met in my life.
Ah.
God, he looked like a Zulu warrior. He was about 6'4", and not a spare ounce on him. He looked like he should be carrying a spear.
Right.
And I just, and he was a wonderful guy. He brought the most notorious lunches that his wife made. But notorious, they were, well, I'll just tell you what one of his lunches was.
Please.
We all gathered to watch him open his lunch because it was always going to be something bizarre. He had a raisin bread sandwich. He opens the thing and it's 2 slices of raisin bread. And what's inside the sandwich was sardines. His wife made him a sardine sandwich with raisin bread.
That's funny.
What? It is funny, and that was, and then one day I asked him what he had. I said, what do you have for lunch today, Horace? He said, gospel bird. Gospel bird. He said, I said, what gospel bird? He said, chicken, man.
That's funny.
So he opened, this is just 2 slices of white bread. I don't know if it had mustard or anything on it, but in between the 2 slices of white bread was a chicken leg and thigh on the bone, with the bone still in it, and nothing else.
Yes.
Just a chicken leg and thigh slammed between 2 slices of white bread. She was not, she was a creative sandwich maker, but not a good one.
Yes.
So he just chewed around the bones and ate the way. So that was Horace. So yes, and that's funny that somebody would mention that.
Yes, I'd love to know where they got Horace and Willie. That's why I like the readers' questions, because some of them know things about you that you've forgotten.
Yeah. Well, and Bill Shoemaker was a dear friend because he was my childhood hero.
Yes.
The first thing I wanted to be was a jockey until I realized I was big.
Yes, you'd never make it as a jockey. You're too tall and too heavy, you know.
I asked my mother once, because she knew I wanted to be a jockey. And when I was a kid, I think I was maybe 10 years old or something. And I asked my mother, if I slept in a drawer, would that keep me short?
That's a great story. That is funny. Next reader wants to know about the great stuntman Dean Smith. Not only a great stuntman, but a fabulous track man, I think, in the '52 Olympics.
Yes, he won a gold medal.
Gold medal. Do you still see Dean and talk about your friendship with him?
Yeah, I sent you a note. You obviously didn't get it. I sent you an email. Because I asked you a question, I was thinking you might respond to it, but you didn't.
No, we get 80 a day, so I just knew I was going to call you today. Is Dean doing okay? Is there a problem with him?
Yeah, he's got cancer.
Ah, jeez.
Yeah, yeah. And I talk to him all the time. Literally, I was talking to him once a week, but now he's not so up for talking. So he's been battling cancer for at least 12, 14 years.
My God.
And doing just great. Just great. I mean, you see him, I've seen him. I saw him 3 months ago. And he looked like $1 million. You never see anything wrong with it. So he goes once a week. He lives in oh gosh, I've forgotten the name of the town, but it's about a 2-hour drive from here. But he goes up to Fort Worth.
Right.
For treatment. So he's been dealing with it, and whatever the treatment is, he's never lost a hair. He's got a full head of gray hair, and he's fit. He looks like $1 million. You never guess that he has a medical problem at all. You wouldn't until when I saw him in these, 3 months ago, he was looking a little drawn.
Right.
A little drawn. But I've heard from a couple of people that I guess the cancer was for years in remission as long as he went for this treatment. And now I understand that it's no longer in remission.
Got it. Do you know what kind of cancer it is?
I'm not sure.
Okay. The reason I asked you about him, he has written his autobiography, and we wanted to give it some exposure, but it sounds like he wouldn't be able to talk to us by telephone, would he?
Well, he might. I wouldn't make that assumption. Do you have his phone number?
I think I do, but if you have it handy, we'll try him. If he doesn't feel like it, that's fine. But this is a very good way to help him sell the book if he's interested.
Well, I'll give you his phone number, but you don't say where you got it.
No, I'll just tell him we're calling cold. I won't mention your name.
Yeah, well, you can mention my name. It'll be fine. But you don't have to say I gave you his phone.
That's right. I'll tell. If he asks who we've done, I said, well, one of your good friends, Alex Cord, and I spoke the other day. That's all I'll tell him.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah. You want me to give it to you? Can I do that while I keep you on the line?
Please, yeah, put me on hold and give it to me. No problem.
I don't know how to do all that stuff. Let's see. Put you on hold.
If it disconnects, I'll just call you back. Don't worry about it.
All right, let me try. Oh, here, contacts. Oh, it says I have to enter a passcode. Do I still have you?
Yes, you do.
Oh, okay, great. And then here, I'm going to come up with his phone number here.
Take your time, no rush.
Okay. Dean Stibby Smith. Okay, here's his mobile number, 254
254 area code
559
559.
4179.
Let me read.
I'll give you his home phone.
Okay.
940
940
362
362.
4215.
Got it. Okay. That's his home phone.
That's his home. Yes.
He's got to be one of the greatest stuntmen of all time, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. It's incredible.
Tremendous stuntman.
Yeah.
Tremendous. He did a lot of work. Didn't he do the stunts for you in Stagecoach, if I remember?
Yeah, he did.
Right. Right. Is that where you guys first met back in 1966?
Yes.
Good to know that.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to see how I get back to where I had you before. I had you on the screen here, but now I don't see you.
I can hear you, so you're fine.
Okay, well, I'm just going to leave it, not mess with the phone, because if I do, I'm not going to screw it up.
Okay.
All right, so you've got his numbers.
Yes. Now, I wanted to ask you about Stephanie Powers, and the reason I bring it up, a lot of our readers would like to make donations to her African Wildlife Foundation, and we wanted to ask her about that, but is it not possible to get her by phone?
Well, you know, I have her number, but I don't want to give that out.
Okay. Do you have an email? Maybe we can email her, and then she can respond to us.
I do, but you know what I'll do? I'll have to... I'm not good with these.
Why don't you after we hang up, why don't you email her email to me?
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and in this way, if she doesn't want to talk, that's fine. If she does, that would be great.
Yeah, okay.
She's such a wonderful person. She's always traveling, and a lot of people wanted to know, you know, can they make a donation? Where? What does the money go for? I said, I have no idea. That's why I mentioned her name to you in that email.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah.
Good. So this way, if she wants to talk, that's fine.
Okay, I will see that you get her email.
Good. Are you and Henry Silva, who is still living? I think he's 91 or 92. Do you and Henry Silva have a friendship?
Well, I would certainly consider him a friend. Yeah.
Okay.
We don't spend a lot of time communicating.
Right. He still works out in a gym. I was at a gym in L.A. maybe 6 months ago, and Henry Silva's banging on the weights and lifting barbells. Got to be 91, 92.
That's great. God bless him.
Isn't that good to hear?
I love him.
A fabulous actor.
What? Say that again?
I say Henry Silva is a very good actor.
Oh, yeah, I love it. It's great. He's been one of my favorite Marlon Brando pictures, Viva Zapata.
That's right, he sure was. Boy, you have a memory. It's scary how good your memory is. Wow. Yeah. You ought to write a book on how to have a good memory, never mind some of the other stuff. Just write a book on how to have a fabulous memory at 86.
Now, where is this interview that you're doing with me? Where will this be seen?
This will be seen on our website, which I can email to you. Like like you, I can't drop every. I will email you the website, and the whole thing will be on our website.
Okay.
And we're also going to let our readers know that you have a number of books for sale, not only your memoir, but you have other books, and we want to let them know about that. If I recall, A Feather in the Rain is one of the good ones.
That won a prize.
Yes, I know, yes. Can I ask, how are the books selling? I'd be curious. Are they selling fairly well? I'd be interested in how they're doing.
Yeah, they're selling fairly well.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Any publicity would be most helpful.
Yes, yeah. I always tell people the key is exposure. You could write the best book in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it's not going to sell.
Yeah.
You got to write a good book.
Yes, sir. I'm writing a good one right now.
Yes. All right, let me ask you a few more questions. We'll stop at an hour. We got about 5 minutes to go. Talk about your friendship with Chuck Connors. When I interviewed Chuck Connors before he died, he spoke tremendously about you. He said you were in the pilot episode of Branded. So talk a little about the great Chuck Connors, if you would.
Well, there again, I've got great stories about Chuck. First of all, he took an ad out that I published it in my memoir.
Ah.
Yeah, it's in the memoir. There's a photo of it because it was an ad in the Variety Reporter, and it was so complimentary, talking about me as a especially talented actor. I can't tell you how beautifully written it was. And it was so generous of him to do that. We had the best time working together. And I did a eulogy at his funeral.
Ah.
I did, yeah. He, when we were doing Synanon, we were working at Santa Monica at the beach, and I had a motorcycle, and I was a hot rod on that motorcycle, and roared around. So there were all those good restaurants out there along the Pacific Coast Highway. So I got Chuck. I said, let's go to lunch at a place down the road here and get a great seafood lunch. And I said, well, it was a hot summer day. I said, I'll take you on my motorcycle. And he said, okay, that'd be cool. So he gets on behind me, and I told him this was a hot bike. It was a track bike. And it was an off-road vehicle, so I could ride that thing. I knew what the hell I was doing. So I was going to give it a thrill. So he gets on behind me, and I told him, I said, Chuck, this thing flies, and I might accelerate, to impress you. So, don't be embarrassed about putting your arms around me. Put your arms around me and hang on to me. So we get ready to go. And I said, okay, you ready? Yeah. I twist that thing and it revs up. And I drop the clutch and it doesn't move. The motor is just racing, but it's not going anywhere. And what the hell? I looked back, and he had lifted the rear wheel off the ground.
How do you like that?
So the wheel was spinning like crazy. Underneath him, he had both feet on the ground. Son of a bitch. I tell you, anyway. So that was Chuck. And, I told that at his funeral. And he did. He had a house in Palm Springs, and invited me down there with my girlfriend to spend a weekend. And so we went to a couple of really fancy restaurants, and he was well known down there.
Yes.
So at one point, and of course you know about his baseball career.
Right.
So he, after dinner, we had martinis, and so we were feeling good. We'd had a few martinis. And at some point, he starts to perform, and this is a white table cloth place, and he starts to perform Casey at the Bat.
Ah.
At the table. And it's just he and his wife and me and my girlfriend just before this. And he starts to perform it for just us at the table, but then he's doing it in a big voice. He had a big voice anyway, and his surrounding tables are listening. And so now he realizes he's got an audience. So he starts to perform it for all the tables around us.
Mm.
And he's got everybody listening to him do Casey at the Bat.
Huh.
And he's doing it brilliantly. So, and he finally gets to a point, and he did it, of course, his instincts as an actor were excellent.
Yes.
He knew when to stand up from the chair. So the next thing you know, he's standing in just the right place. And the next thing you know, he's standing on the chair.
Ah.
And now, from standing on the chair, he finished standing on the table.
Mm.
Okay, the back. And I mean, he brought that house down. That was Chuck.
Yes. I have a Chuck Connors story for you. You'll like this one. He has Frank Capra and I over for dinner one night. And he says, Mr. Capra, you want to see one of the greatest thrills of my life? And Capra and I said, sure, Chuck, thinking maybe it would be him playing baseball. He also played basketball. Pulls out a movie called Pat and Mike with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. And Chuck has a part in there. He is like a judge or a police officer, and he's got a 15-minute scene with Hepburn, Tracy, and Chuck. And he just sat there watching it. He said, can you believe that I am working, this is very early in his career, with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, and I think I pretty much held my own. Don't you think, Mr. Capra? And Capra said, Chuck, you did quite well. Well, he must have played that 1,000 times. Whenever we went there, he would show it to us as if we had never seen it before. He loved being in a scene with Tracy and Hepburn.
I guess. Why? Who would?
Do you remember the picture, Pat and Mike?
I do remember it very well.
Right, and I think Katharine Hepburn was an athlete, Tracy was the manager, and Chuck Connors had a scene with them. He was thrilled to play that for us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But he was a very, very decent. The only thing Chuck did that we were he would not stop smoking. I think he died of lung cancer at about 70 or 71.
Yeah.
And I begged him. I said, Chuck, you've got to stop the smoking, you know. And I don't know whether he tried or not, but he died, you know, younger than he should have.
Yeah. There was a TV director named Alex March.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. He was a good director. He actually started out as an actor, and he was a dear friend of mine. I did several TV shows with him, and he was an inveterate smoker, and I stayed on his case constantly. We had a mutual friend in the most beautiful woman in the world, in my mind, was Jean Simmons.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, I worked with her several times, and I was desperately in love with her. Alex was a good friend of both of us, and we tried to get him to quit smoking, and he just wouldn't. And finally, at one point, he turned on me and told me in no uncertain terms that he didn't want me to mention it to him anymore.
Sure, sure.
So I said, I respected him, and I said, fine. Never said another word about it. And I didn't, and it was no time after that passed away.
Yes. It's a terrible thing, cigarette smoking, when it's got you by the throat and you can't stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me who some of your, other than Robert Fuller and Dean Smith, who are some of your friends today that you talk to or see, once? I'd be curious.
Well,
I know you were friends with Morgan Woodward, but he died recently.
Yeah. Of the actors, it's funny because I've lived such a weird life and have done that most of my friends are horse people.
Ah, okay.
And cowboys.
How about Angie Dickinson? You worked with her a number of times.
I just saw her 2 weeks ago in a collector show in Memphis, Tennessee, Tunica. She came to this collector show, and it was the first time I had seen her in years. It was such a thrill for me to see her. And she just couldn't have been more warm and as happy to see me as I played her husband in one TV series. And I did several guest shots, policewoman. She and I are good friends. Yeah.
She's a lovely person, isn't she? I know her fairly well. Lovely person.
Yeah, she's just great. I love her.
Do you ever see Kirk Douglas, who's alive at 102? I realize that's quite an age. Do you ever?
You know what? If I had to name a number one actor or person in show business who is my favorite, it would be Kirk Douglas.
Really? Isn't that interesting? Wow.
Yeah, he and I played brothers in the Brotherhood.
Right.
And he was a guy who could be intimidating, but he just loved me. And when we finished the movie, we were brothers. Our name was Vincent, Vinny, and Mike.
Yes.
And when we finished the movie, as you know, we played Italians.
Right.
He gave me a beautiful, solid gold money clip that had a little space on it to engrave something. And he engraved it. It said, the Brotherhood. It said, Vince, love, Frank. Me frate. My brother.
Yes.
Me frate. My brother. Vince, love,
lovely story. You know, I saw him about a year ago in a restaurant. Keep in mind, he was 101, and his mind is still as clear as a bell. He remembers things. He had a stroke, so his talking is a little rough, but it's amazing at 102 that his memory is fine, his recall is great, and that's quite something at 102.
You're damn right. I spoke to him a year ago. A year ago, I called him. I forget what there was some reason that I used to call him. I think it might have been just to congratulate him on his birthday.
Yes, yes.
He got on the phone and talked to me for, just a minute or so at the most.
Right.
But that, I wasn't going to tax him. But that was a year ago. So, yeah, I can't tell you the incredible respect, love, admiration that I have for Kirk Douglas.
He is truly one of the greatest movie stars of all time, don't you think?
Absolutely.
He is one of the giants.
Yes, indeed he is. And great friendship between him and he and Burt Lancaster.
Yes.
And there was something I wanted to... Oh, yeah, I know what I wanted to say. It's another guy, a male actor, for whom I feel the same way as I do about Kirk, and that was George C. Scott.
Yes.
I did a TV show with him, and I played a paraplegic. And in those days, you got a part in a TV show. It was like 2 weeks before you were going to go to work. So you had time to work on it.
Right.
So I was playing a paraplegic. I went to a paraplegic hospital every day for about 10 days. I got to where I could do wheelies in the wheelchair. I could dribble a basketball from the wheelchair. And George and I had several great scenes together. And one of them is where I think that I'm going to get to walk again. And I'm convinced of that. And it's a false conviction. And George has what do you call it? Where did he play in East Side, West Side?
He was kind of the head of the hospital, wasn't he? A therapist, something?
It was there's a title for it. Anyway, social worker.
That's it.
Social worker. And as a social worker, he knew that I was going on a false belief. So this was a big scene where he is going to try to convince me that I am not going to walk again. And I am convinced that I am going to walk again. And it was such a great, power-packed scene, beautifully written, that when we finished the scene, I was a verge of tears, holding them back, because I was having to believe what he was saying. And the entire crew and cast stood and applauded us in that scene. When the director said, I never experienced that before.
Yes.
And it was such a huge event in my life. And I ran into George Scott years later at the LA Equestrian Center because he was married to a woman who was showing horses. horse show, so there were lots of people around. And he came through the crowd, calling my name when he spotted me. He was Alex! And I stopped and I spotted him, and here he comes like a big grizzly bear through the crowd. And he wraps his arms around me and lifted me off the ground. Yeah.
And you're not an easy person to lift off the ground.
Well, compared to him, he lifted me like that was nothing. Yeah, he was a strong guy. But I adored him.
Yes. There's another powerful actor. He and Kirk Douglas, two absolutely powerful actors.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a privilege. How privileged I was to get to work with those two guys.
Do you get in?
Another great actor that I worked with was Edmund O'Brien.
Oh, yes. Oh.
Singing with him. He was a jewel. I loved Edmund O'Brien. And he did Shakespeare. He did Julius Caesar with Marlon Brando.
That's right. He sure did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about someone who I don't want people to forget. I understand you and your wife, Joanna, knew Sharon Tate. Is that true?
Yes.
Now, obviously, she was quite young when she died. Did you take acting classes with her, ever do a little picture with her, or just friends because you were Hollywood people?
No, we were friends because she was a very close friend of Joanna's.
Okay. So you knew her through your wife, that she was Joanna's friend?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You can probably tell that I don't really want to talk about it.
We'll pass on that. I met her one time. That she was one of the loveliest girls, not only a nice person, but beautiful. Sometimes they can be beautiful and they're arrogant or stuck up. Sharon didn't have an air in the world. You would think she was just your next-door neighbor.
Yeah, exactly right.
Right? I mean,
Loved her. I loved her.
Yes, yes.
It was a very dramatic time.
Yes. All right, well, Al, we've gone an hour and 20 minutes. I don't need any more. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to email me